Hello everybody. Today's session is based on a conference paper. This conference paper was presented in Human-Computer International Conference held in Washington, D.C. From the 24th till the 29th of July 2021. The paper's title is Online Formative Feedback, Online Formative Assessment and Feedback, a focus group discussion among language teachers. The authors of this research paper are Irina Husay and Harshita Harun. Myself, I am from the University of Wollongong in Dubai, and Professor Harshita is from the University of Malaysia, Perlis. Let's continue. So the aim of this paper basically was to try to understand the relationship between the assessment feedback and the assessment tasks. So basically the cycle of formative feedback which students receive during any semester really. There is feedback. There is a kind of feedback that is given to students, and of course there is assessment which is as a result of that feedback. So basically, how do we implement formative assessment and formative feedback in the online platform? Now, obviously, this study was held in 2021, and during that time, we all were going through COVID-19. So this research paper is basically as a result of the same experience, the COVID-19 pandemic. Because the conference was during 2021 and due to the restrictions that were held worldwide, this was basically a hybrid conference and did not take place physically. So this was one of the things that we as researchers had to go through and had to suffer. Now, when it comes to implementation of formative feedback and formative assessment and formative feedback in the online platform, as you can understand, they are completely different from the face-to-face platform for many reasons. Now we'll continue with the reasons. So when it comes to the formative feedback and formative assessment, one of the factors that has the strongest influence in learning is without a doubt feedback. Feedback is very important. So it's very important that students understand what they know, what they don't know. Now, of course, it is very important for us as educators to understand what students know, so we know how to assess them. Now, when it comes to the formative feedback, this formative feedback generally is an area of education that actually needs work. But when it comes to the online platform, this is even more difficult because of many reasons which will be highlighted in this. So one of the reasons that, of course, has an impact on formative feedback is computer self-efficacy and computer use for teaching and learning. Now, generally speaking, there was a relationship. There should be a positive relationship between the self-efficacy and attitudes towards digital technology, integration of technology in classroom or an online platform, level of education technology, or blended learning, like in our case. And the most important thing, the perceived usefulness and ease on the use of computer. In other words, in 2021, we were forced to go into the education, into the online education. However, it's very important to understand how we perceive the usefulness of the online platform. In other words, did we actually enjoy teaching online or didn't? So the objectives of the study are to understand teachers' perspective and experiences in the uses of the online platform in the provision of formative feedback. As I said, that this was a study held in 2021. So basically, the focus was to explore teachers which teach languages. So we had English teachers and we had Arabic teachers, and they taught at schools and they taught in universities. So basically, it's about understanding the perspective of teachers on the uses of computer and online teaching. Knowledge of formative feedback, very important. Knowledge of formative, basically practicing of providing formative feedback, and intention to proceed with online formative feedback after the 2020 closure. So basically after the pandemic. So the methodology is a qualitative approach. We had focus group, and the idea was to deep dive into the formative feedback and the formative assessment. We had 5 language teachers, 3 Malaysian English language teachers at the Malaysian University, 1 teacher from Jordan and Egypt who taught English, and another teacher from another teacher from Egypt who taught Arabic the teachers from Jordan and Egypt were both from the UAE. The teachers had 6 to 10 years teaching experience in higher education. This was very important because we needed to know from the perspective of teachers who already had experience in education. So basically they were not worried about how to teach. All what they're concerned about is what to do with the technological tools. And at the time of study, they were still teaching online. So the Malaysian teachers were all teaching online, while the UAE teachers were teaching in hybrid mode. So basically the questions asked were teachers' perspective on utilization of computers for online teaching, knowledge of formative assessment, knowledge of formative feedback, techniques of providing formative feedback, just like we mentioned, and the intention to continue with feedback after the pandemic. Obviously, the data analysis was done through an interpretation, patterns and themes were identified, and then analyzed. So the themes emerging from data were knowledge, computer self-efficacy, very, very important, knowledge and implementation of OFA and OFF, so basically the online formative assessment and online formative feedback, stress and struggles of teachers, very normal, usefulness of technological tools, and the intention to use them even when we go back to the face-to-face. So the self-efficacy was a mix and match, actually. Well, some of the teachers said that they really enjoyed, and the others not really. However, some of the teachers were more creative than the others, and it's interesting because they were all language teachers, but basically that has to do with their personality as well. And some of them were very confident about teaching online, continuing to teach online, or very blended, but some of them not really. Now, the online formative feedback, a lot of them have tried, the teachers explained that they tried to comprehend the idea of the concepts of feedback and basically utilizing those concepts in the online platform. Not easy, but possible. And some of the teachers mentioned these are some of the notes. Some of the teachers mentioned that they were extremely concerned about the productivity of the students and the possibility of gauging the productivity and understanding measuring the productivity of the students. Challenges, knowledge and implementation of OFA and OFF. Challenges during extra time. Obviously, the teachers mentioned that there was the need for extra time being spent because of preparation of material, which is something that we all went through during COVID-19. Logistical, practical, and emotional challenges, very important. Large class sizes, especially the instructors from Malaysia. Large number of assessments and time allocation for each class. Very difficult to manage the needs of the students in the online platform. Stress and struggle, meaningful feedback, very difficult to be achieved in the online platform. Not impossible, but difficult. Trustworthiness, problems with academic integrity, having to become more proficient in the online learning, quite complex as a notion, and very challenging for students with lower language proficiency, data management difficult, and of course information. The usefulness of technological tools, yes, all the teachers mentioned that they are useful. The OFA and OFF are both useful, and they must be basically known by teachers and professors. Nevertheless, there was a clear division between OFF and OFA. In other words, majority of the teachers said that OFA should be implemented even after COVID-19 pandemic is over. However, they are not very much sure about OFF, and that is mainly because of academic integrity issues. So cheating, effectiveness, complexity are all concerns of the teachers. So basically, the summary of the findings were that it was positive, so the teachers were comfortable with the online teaching. Again, it's important to be mentioned that this paper took place during COVID-19 restrictions. So it depends really. If you do the same thing now, the findings might be different, so it's interesting. They were interested in the teachers were willing to explore using tools and adopting approaches, very important. And of course, paying attention to effective learning concerns. Extra burden, of course, there is material preparation, there is a lot of learning to take place, appropriateness of tools, and the institutional leadership lacking sensibility on the needs of the online classes. Online classes are very different from the face-to-face, and they have different sets. Conclusion and recommendations. Well, online teaching has not affected the teacher's sensitivity towards students' needs. So for teachers like myself, students' needs are very important. Of course, teachers need professional development. They need support from institutions and commitment from the institutions for the workload and the rest of the information that is connected with teaching. So this was the presentation that took part in Human Computer International conference, which was held virtually, but was supposed to be held in the United States. I hope this presentation was worth it, and if you have any questions, please email me on irinahusai@uowdubai.ac.ae. Bye-bye. Take good care of yourselves and stay safe.